Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Cham Vishnupad Param Sivaraj Kachara Shtotter Shata Svaingari Sabhaichar and the Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ke Cha Krantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ke Cha Nitya Premanande, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Scheduled Incarnations, Text 5. Taptam tapo vividalokasis rikshayame. Taptam tapo vividalokasis rikshayame. Adasanatsa tapasa sachatusano abhut. Dasanatsa tapasa. Prakalpa samplava vinashtamihatma tattvam. Vinashtamihatma tattvam. Samyak jagada munayo yadachakshatatman. Taptam tapo vividaloka sisrikshayame. Arasanat satapasa sachatusano abhut. Prakalpa samplava vinashtamihatma tattvam. Samyak jagada munayo yadachakshatatman. Taptam tapo vividaloka sisrikshayame. Arasanatva tapasa sachatut sanobhut. Prakalpa samplava vinashtamihatma tattvam. Samyak jagada munayo yadachakshatatman. Taptam tapo vividaloka sisrikshayame. Adasanatsa tapasa sachatusano. Prakalpa samplava vinashtamihatma tattvam. Samyat jagada munayo yadachakshatatman. Okay, word to word. Taptam, having undergone austerities. Tapaha, penance. Vividaloka, different planetary systems. Sisrikshaya, desiring to create. Me, of mine. Ada, at first. Sanat, from the personality of Godhead. Svatapasaha, by dint of my own penances. Saha, he, the Lord. Chatusanaha, the four bachelors named Sanat Kumara, Sanaka, Sanandana, and Sanatana. Abhut, appeared. Prag, previous. Kalpa, creation. Samplava, in the inundation. Vinashtam, devastated. Iha, in this material world. Atma, the spirit. Tattvam, truth. Samyak, incomplete. Jagada, became manifested. Munayaha, sages. Yat, that which. Achakshata, so clearly. Atman, the spirit. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jaya. To create different planetary systems, I had to undergo austerities and penance, and the Lord, thus being pleased with me, incarnated in four sanas, Sanaka, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana, and Sanatana. In the previous creation, the spiritual truth was devastated, but the four sanas explained it so nicely that the truth at once became clearly perceived by the sages. Purport. The Vishnu Sahasranam prayers mention the Lord's name as Sanat and Sanatanatama. The Lord and the living entities are both qualitatively Sanatana or eternal, but the Lord is Sanatanatama or the eternal in the superlative degree. The living entities are positively Sanatana but not superlatively, because the living entities are apt to fall to the atmosphere of non-eternity. Therefore, the living entities are quantitatively different from the superlative Sanatana, the Lord. The word Son is also used in the sense of charity. Therefore, when everything is given up in charity unto the Lord reciprocates by giving himself unto the devotee. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4.11. Hiyatamam prapatyante. Brahmaji wanted to create the whole cosmic situation as it was in the previous millennium, and because in the last devastation knowledge of the Absolute Truth was altogether erased from the universe, he desired that the same knowledge again be renovated. Otherwise there would be no meaning in the creation. Because transcendental knowledge is a prime necessity, the ever-conditioned souls are given a chance for liberation in every millennium of creation. This mission of Brahmaji was fulfilled by the grace of the Lord when the four Sanas, namely Sanaka, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana and Sanatana, appeared as his four sons. These four Sanas were incarnations of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and as such they explained transcendental knowledge so explicitly that all the sages could at once assimilate this knowledge without the least difficulty. By following in the footsteps of the four Kumaras, one can at once see the Supreme Personality of Godhead within oneself. Om Kyanati Mirandasya Krananchana Shalakaya Chaksharon Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Potale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadate Svapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sakrashatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajevam Sadvetam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamshcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jagatpate Kopesha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpadarabhascha Kripa Sindhyava Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we started recently now after hearing quite a lot of philosophy, and in the last few chapters of the ongoing conversation between Narad Muni and the Lord Brahma, his father, where we heard about the universal form and about the creation in quite detail and with all the technicalities, and so everything directly related to the material world, and of the Lord's aspect of his basically how to see even his external energy in a personal way, and he see the Lord behind everything of that, which is very important as well. But then, of course, the devotees derive even more pleasure when they meditate on here the glorious pastimes of the Lord in his personal forms, which are also innumerable. We know Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam, as Lord Brahma himself tells. And even in class recently we heard Rajavin, who said, I think Rajavinod Mataji, that it said there's two things which you cannot count in this Kali Yuga. The first one is the mistakes that we do and the people in Kali Yuga, and the second one is the incarnations that the Lord takes. It's compared to the waves in the ocean which never stop. So, but of course we are very limited with our capacity to hear, and conceive of the Lord. It's different incarnations, but still, when Srimad Bhagavatam explains the most famous ones, so to say, and we heard that already earlier in Srimad Bhagavatam, and as in an answer from Sutta Goswami to the sages about the Lord's incarnations, and now again Lord Brahma himself, so to say, had for the time being enough of talking about the external features, representations of the Lord, and talks directly, glorifies the Lord directly in his personal form. And so we heard a few incarnations starting with Lord Varahadev, then I think Lord Kapila, what was the second one? In the room of Suyakya, yeah, that's a bit less famous one compared to the others for us. So born from Akuti and Prajapati Ruchi, which is, as far as I remember, I think a Manvantara incarnation where he takes then the post of Indra as well, and then so to help the devotees in that way. And then Lord Kapiladev, and yesterday we heard about Dattatreya as one of the three sons of Atri Muni, taking birth or appearance from after Atri Muni's penances, where he called out to the Jagatpati, to the Supreme Lord, being of this universe, not having specific knowledge, and thus all three Gunavatars appeared, and they said, you didn't ask specifically, so all three of us are here, and we give you a benediction of a son. So he begot from Lord Brahma Soma, the moon god, from Lord Shiva Turvasa Muni, and from Lord Vishnu Dattatreya as partial incarnations. And so today we hear about the four Kumaras as also being incarnations, although they are of course, they are not Vishnu Tattva. Even Dattatreya is not Vishnu Tattva, he is also Shaktivesh avatar. And so they also are empowered living entities. And we hear, what are they empowered with? They are specifically empowered with the Lord's knowledge. Because it's interesting, actually we know initially that when they took birth as from Lord Brahma at the very beginning of creation, with his intention actually to give birth to Prajapatis, so to say, to living entities who then populate the universe, which they were unwilling to do, because as we hear, we can very easily understand from this verse, because they are actually the incarnations, the knowledge incarnations of the Lord. So they are specifically appeared to propound transcendental knowledge. So they're of course not interested in engaging in material activities. And but still, we know they actually were not right away devotees. They were realized on the Brahman platform. They were not Mayavadis, but they were Brahmavadis. So they were not didn't want to merge with the Lord or something like this, like in an envious way, wanting to be the Lord, but rather they were simply satisfied on having realized that they are not the material body, they have nothing to do with that, but that they are spirit, soul, and so propounding this knowledge, that's what they came for. And then we know only later than in the past time they actually got attracted by the fragrance of the tulsi leaves offered to the Lord, and went to Vaikuntha, their cursed giant Vijay, and which is related to some of those other incarnations like Varahadev that we heard already about, of killing Hiranyaksha, who was the first birth of Jai or Vijay, one of them. And it's interesting actually to think that they were not even devotees, but still actually they were Shaktivesh avatars right from the beginning. It shows that the Lord has specific plans for even for someone who hasn't realized his personal feature at that time, but they were pure in heart of not having any material desires, and so that's why then they later very easily got attracted to the personal feature simply by smelling the fragrance of tulsi. And so Srila Prabhupada in the purport first discusses the word sanatana, that we know even the living entities, that's Prabhupada many times quotes and hits on the point against the Mayavadi, that even the jivas, we are sanatana, like from Bhagavad Gita, Mama Mamsha Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, quoting this verse usually, where Krishna tells that you are my amsha, you are just simply my part, you are not equal to me, but you are sanatana, you are an eternal amsha. You're an eternal part and parcel of me, which means that we, at no stage of existence, can we fully merge. We can only, so to say, in illusion merge as being simply situated in the Brahmajyoti, the Lord's bodily effulgence, but we can never lose our individuality. And that's why this state can never fully satisfy us, because we are individual persons, and persons want relationships, and relationships we can only have with the personal feature of the Lord and His devotees. And that's why those jivas fall eventually back down into the material atmosphere until they realize His personal features, become His devotees. So that's the aspect of sanatana, of the living entity, that we, as the spirit soul, can never be annihilated, as like from all those verses of 2nd chapter Bhagavad Gita, of course we know. Its soul cannot be burned, cannot be dried, cannot be dissolved, nothing. It is eternal, but like Prabhupada, what he adds here in the differentiation to the Lord is that the Lord is, he says, superlative sanatana, sanatana tama, because he can never ever be in contact with something or influenced by something which is not eternal. He is eternal, situated in his transcendental position of course, being even not just transcendental, like there's also even many jivas who are always situated transcendentally, like we know most of the souls actually are not nitya baddhas like we are, who have fallen, but nitya siddhas who never fall into the material world and who are always transcendentally situated in their loving relationship with Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So the Lord, of course, is even more than that. He's always the supreme enjoyer and supreme controller and the supreme Lord in every respect. But still, compared to us, that's the main difference, that the Lord is superlative sanatana because he never is in an atmosphere of non-permanence, or well, how do you say, what's the word Srila Prabhupada uses? Non-eternity, Prabhupada says. So he says the living entities are positively sanatana, but not superlatively, because the living entities are apt to fall to the atmosphere of non-eternity. So that's the thing with us. As long as we don't fully realize our loving relationship with the Lord, then we don't get the full benefit of just knowing the theory. Like, there's quite many people who have some knowledge that actually we are not just this perishable body. That at least in some way or other, many people think that we don't fully die. I mean that we are eternal. But of course, most don't even have proper theoretical knowledge. But apart from the theoretical knowledge, if it's still only theory, then we still get influenced and by the non-eternity, by the material atmosphere. We still are fearful of anything happening to our body and anxious about our maintenance, about our satisfying our material needs and all of that. Whereas if we fully realize our eternity as an eternal servitor of the Lord, then we are not influenced at all by any of that. Like devotees, like we hear many in the Bhagavatam, and like I remember Prabhupada in a Purpati mentioned specifically the 6 Goswamis that they are really Goswamis, that they have full control over their senses, that they never got influenced in any way by any of the material needs, like basically not even of sleep or eating or anything like that. So that's the first part in the paragraph, and then Prabhupada adds that this word "son" can also refer to charity, and Prabhupada tells that if everything is given up in charity unto the Lord reciprocates by giving Himself unto the devotee, and he quotes then on Bhagavad Gita 4:11 that "Ye yata mam prapatyante," so that which tells Krishna Himself promises straight that there's in this way also, I mean in many places, that there is never any loss in whatever we give to the Lord. He always reciprocates perfectly, and in fact we know He is giving much more than what we can give. Of course, it's first of all we actually don't have anything to give, because the Lord is proprietor of everything. So our giving in charity is simply what the Lord actually accepts, is using our free will, not to misuse, to try to lord over the material energy, the Lord's external energy, but rather to offer everything for the pleasure of the Lord, which means He accepts our offering of love, and not of matter, of course. So in that, is according to our degree of how much we hold back, then we are still stuck, still attached to matter. Whereas if we fully surrendered with full faith that the Lord takes care of us perfectly, and we simply engage our everything, all our possessions, including our body, our physical, mental energy, for the pleasure of the Lord, for His service, and for remembering Him, glorifying Him, then we are also on the platform of eternity, of being transcendently situated. And then Prabhupada mentions about Lord Brahma, that when he wanted to create again, that there was the issue that actually in the last devastation, knowledge of the Absolute Truth was altogether erased from the universe, and he wanted it to be renovated again. So that was why the Lord incarnated as the 4 Kumaras. Of course we know this kind of knowledge, transcendental knowledge, and like Srimad Bhagavatam especially, of course, also, it can never be destroyed, as we know also from Bhagavad Gita that that Krishna admits that this knowledge has been not properly present in humanity. That's why he had told it again, like previously to Vivasvan, and now again to Arjuna. But of course, the knowledge itself, it cannot be destroyed. It's simply a matter of the people's consciousness of how degraded it gets, how if they take heed of the Lord's instructions and of the knowledge that He gives, but still we can say like that, and we see that that's so. They are one incarnation for that, the 4 Kumaras, that they themselves are empowered by the Lord to propagate transcendental knowledge. And then of course other incarnations for that are Matsya Avatar, where we know that the Lord personally appears as the fish incarnation when the demons Hayagriva, when they steal the Vedic knowledge from Lord Brahma. And in the same way, it's a matter of just of being exposed or not, of course, not of being destroyed. So Matsyavatar and what is the other incarnation? I forgot. There's one more personal incarnation of the Lord also where he... also the horse incarnation. I think also called Hayagriva, right? Same like this demon actually. So who also comes to rescue the Vedic knowledge from the demons. So, basically also what we see here is the Lord incarnated, of course for the good of all living entities of the whole universe, by to give this transcendental knowledge through the four Kumaras, but also he fulfilled the desire of his devotee of Lord Brahma, who was anxious to have this transcendental knowledge available to all his prajas. And then Prabhupada says that these four sanas were incarnations of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and as such they explained transcendental knowledge so explicitly that all the sages could at once assimilate this knowledge without the least difficulty. And that's quite an important point actually, that Prabhupada makes here at the end, that it's with any kind of knowledge, but especially with transcendental knowledge, it's important not to just have it somehow available, somehow knowing all the technicalities and everything, but even more important is how much can it be used, how much can it be applied, and for that we need the mercy of the devotees or of those transcendentalists who have that knowledge. And it's also an art to be able to explain it in such a way that the audience can assimilate it. Otherwise, there's not much point in simply talking about knowledge. Of course, in case of glorifying the Supreme Lord, it's always glorious. It's always purifying for the speaker as well. But of course, better if the audience can also understand something and assimilate something. And so, like Prabhupada tells you, that they explained it so explicitly that all the sages who heard that knowledge could at once assimilate this knowledge without the least difficulty. So that's quite amazing. And also shows, of course, how, even though, it's because they are directly empowered by the Lord with the knowledge, that's why they can do like that, like Prabhupada tells here. And of course, but also can imagine the sages must also be quite a good caliber of being able to assimilate all this knowledge without the least difficulty. So, that's like we know, the creation, it starts off with so many great personalities, exalted personalities, and like all those sages, and that's like, because that's, and then over time, of course, it degrades more, as you know. But also, what we see here is the importance of knowledge, like right from the creation. Because generally, with creation, we think about how the material elements, how they are created by the Lord and then used by Lord Brahma. How the visible, the gross, and or also subtle, all matter becomes manifest, all the different bodies of living entities, different planets, and the whole nature and everything, how that comes about. That's what we think of creation. But as we hear in today's verse and purport, that along with that, like very important or even more important is the knowledge, because after all the whole purpose of the creation is to give a chance to the fallen living entities, to those who have a misguided mentality of wanting to compete with the Lord, being envious of the Lord, wanting to lord over the material energy, for them the Lord creates this material world, but to be able to then actually make proper use of it, to rectify our wrong mentality and become devotees again, for that we need transcendental knowledge, of course. Otherwise, there's no point to the whole creation. And of course, transcendental knowledge, it's not just a matter of only hearing, or at least, I mean, it can, if someone is like very sincere, hearing alone is powerful enough, any of the 9 processes can lead to perfection of the 9 angas of bhakti. But generally, like, we are not so sincere that we can just sit and hear, take it in full submission, and that's perfect to our life, but rather along with that comes then applying this knowledge in what we hear in our life, in the different aspects, and also that's why with the creation, the second very important part that the Lord tells also Himself, that along with like what He created also is the process of yajna, of sacrifice. Like we discussed it quite recently also, how important sacrifice is, because that's the like a more general term of how the living entities in the material world can come back to the Lord. That we know not everyone is on the stage being ready to take the transcendental knowledge of the Lord's personal feature and become devotees right away, but sacrifice can be made. Of course, the ultimate sacrifice is simply purely for the pleasure of the Lord in pure devotional service, but it can also be at lower stages, like karma kanda, where for people in general, that they at least understand there's the Supreme Lord and there's the different demigods who are agents of the Lord, and whatever we get in our material life, it's provided by those higher authorities and ultimately by the Supreme Lord, and so we have to offer it back to be able to even live properly here in this material world, and thus little purification takes place, and thus with Varnashram Dharma, people can live in a way that they at least gradually can progress from one varna to the next in the next life, and eventually become devotees if they are sincere and get the association of a devotee. And so I think the last sentence Prabhupada tells us also quite powerful, where it says that by following in the footsteps of the 4 Kumaras, one can at once see the Supreme Personality of Godhead within oneself. Which is kind of funny, because we hear here of the aspect of the 4 Kumaras of their initial role, where they simply, as Brahmavadis, expound transcendental knowledge, where they are not even directly devotees of the Lord. But Prabhupada tells you, by following in their footsteps, we can at once see the Supreme Personality of Godhead within oneself. So it shows also that those 4 Kumaras, they were sincere, they just didn't have the association of devotees of the Lord directly until they got the opportunity and then became devotees. And so doing whatever is in our capacity at that time and to our best with sincerity, that will lead to perfection. So this we can understand from that as well. And thus see the Lord within oneself. Like that's the Paramatma feature also, which many transcendentalists know of, but of course we know higher than that is even the personal feature, which by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada we are able to perceive here with Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. Grantarachima Bhagavatam Ki Jaya.